They canceled my wedding venue for my cousin's party. The owner said, "Let me call my daughter. My name is Violet Morgan. I am 28 years old. We're very sorry, Miss Morgan, but your booking has been canceled." The woman behind the desk at Rosewood Hall couldn't even look me in the eye. She kept her head down. She looked nervous. Canceled. 2 months before my wedding. I did not say anything for a moment. My mind felt slow. I just stared at her. The sound of the fancy water fountain in the lobby was too loud. I could not believe her words. When I finally spoke, my voice was low. I asked her why. I just asked, why? She shifted her weight. She put her hands under the desk. She looked at the expensive floral arrangement next to her computer. She whispered the reason. The Wellington family offered triple. Their daughter's engagement party will be hosted here instead. I felt my chest tighten. It felt like a band of metal was squeezing my ribs. The air went out of me fast. I did not need to ask who the Wellingtons were. I knew the Wellingtons, my Aunt Vivian's family, my mother's sister, the family who always thought they were better than us, the family who thought they were better than everyone, and the bride-to-be? My cousin Chloe Wellington, the one who used to call me Dollar Store Barbie. She said that to me when I was 16. I still remembered it. It felt like yesterday. She said it because my clothes were never as expensive as hers. She said it because she knew it would hurt me. And it did. It always did. Before I tell you how everything flipped, like and subscribe. Drop a comment where you are watching from. I stood there. I gripped the thick, glossy contract in my hands. The contract was signed. It was paid for. I had paid the full amount 6 months ago. I had saved for 2 years for this deposit. I forced the words out. They were shaking. That's illegal. I did not yell. My voice was steady but cold. The receptionist flinched. She hesitated. She was shaking now. She looked young. Too young for this fight. Ma'am, please don't yell. I'm just the assistant. I'll have to call the owner. Good, I said. Do that. I put the contract down on the glass desk. I did not move. I watched her hand shake as she reached for the phone. I watched her dial. I felt a strange calm wash over the panic. This felt like the end of something. I just did not know what it was. What I didn't know was that one phone call would change everything. I thought it would just be another layer of pain. I was wrong. I was very wrong. I sat down in the lobby chair. The leather was soft. I ignored the receptionist staring. I looked out the massive window. The lawn outside was perfect, green and manicured. It was the perfect, beautiful place. That was why I picked it. It was far from my old life. I needed this place. I needed this wedding. It was not just a party. It was proof that I had won. Proof that I could build something real. Something they could not touch, my old life. It was a joke to them. A business transaction. 3 years ago, my parents had disowned me. They had not used that exact word. They did not need to. They just made it clear. They cut me off. The reason was simple. I fell in love. I fell in love with a man they called Beneath Us. I met Ethan at the community center. I was volunteering for an art therapy class. He was giving a basic life-saving seminar. He was wearing his uniform. It was clean and pressed. He looked tired but ready, Ethan Carter. He was a paramedic. He was hardworking. He was kind. He was selfless. He ran toward the danger my family ran away from. He saved people. He did not make money from them. I introduced myself. We talked about art. We talked about his job. He did not talk about money. He talked about life. He was not rich. He was not from a good family in the way my mother defined it. He lived in a small apartment. He drove an old truck. He worked double shifts without complaining. But when he looked at me, I felt seen. Truly seen. He made me feel safe. That was more than my family ever had. They had given me things. They had never given me safety. I told my mother about him. I was nervous. I was 25. I should not have been nervous. But I was. We were in the kitchen. The kitchen was all white marble and stainless steel. It looked like a museum. We never really cooked in it. He's a paramedic, Mom, I said. She stopped wiping a speck of dust off a cabinet. She stood up straight. Her face was blank. A paramedic, she repeated. Her voice was flat. Yes, he saves lives. He's a good man. Good men make money, Violet. Good men provide stability. Does he have a retirement fund? A trust? A family name that means something? He has me, I said. It sounded weak. I hated that it sounded weak. She put the cloth down. She did not raise her voice. That was her style. She just made you feel small. She made you feel like you had broken an unspoken sacred rule. You have a future, Violet. A life we worked hard to give you. You will not throw it away for a man who drives an ambulance. That is a temporary job. It is not a career. It is not our class. The argument did not stop there. It went on for 2 weeks. It was not shouting. It was cold, calculated pressure. My father did not speak much. He just watched. His silence was louder than her words. It was judgment without effort. When Ethan proposed, I said yes immediately. He took me to the park, not a fancy restaurant. He made me a picnic. He gave me a ring he had bought with 3 months of overtime. It was beautiful. It was real. I called my mother to tell her. It was a mistake. She did not attend our engagement dinner. We had it at a small Italian place. Just us and a few close friends. It was the most peaceful dinner I had ever had. The next morning, I woke up to a text from my mother. You're choosing poverty. Don't expect our help. It was simple, direct, a clean break. My father was even more precise. He did not call. He did not text. He simply wired the money. It was my college savings. The money he had promised for my master's degree. All of it. Then a single bank message came through. Consider this a goodbye gift. That was it. Goodbye. Erased. I cried for a day. Then I stopped. I looked at the money in the account. It was a lot. But it felt cold. It felt like the price of my freedom. I used that money for my current apartment's deposit. I used it to start my art therapy practice. I used it to live. I did not touch it for the wedding. Since then, I had built a quiet life. Ethan and I had 2 years of quiet, honest effort. I taught art to children with special needs. It paid the bills. I saved every dollar that was left over. I was saving for one thing, Rosewood Hall, this venue. It was the one place that symbolized my new beginning. It was grand, but it was not pretentious. It felt like a space you could fill with real joy. I wanted my wedding there. I wanted the pictures to be a loud, bright statement to my parents and my cousin and my aunt. It would say, I am fine. I am more than fine. I am happy. And now my cousin had stolen it. Chloe. Chloe was getting married to a banker. A man my father would approve of. A man with a name and a number. Her engagement party was already a headline in the local society pages. It was huge. It was a strategic move. It was everything my wedding was not supposed to be. I looked at the contract on the desk again. My name, Violet Morgan. A quiet woman disowned for choosing love over family reputation. I was here, sitting in the humiliation. I was the victim again. Always the victim. I was always the one who lost to the Wellingtons. I thought about Ethan. He had a shift today. He did not know about this. I could not call him yet. I did not want him to hear the defeat in my voice. I did not want him to feel bad. He worked too hard. The receptionist finally finished her conversation. She hung up the phone. She looked even more upset. She was twisting her hands. The owner is very sorry, Miss Morgan, she said, her voice barely a whisper. We will issue a full refund immediately, plus an extra 10% for the inconvenience. No, I said. I stood up. I looked at her directly. The contract is signed. The venue is mine. You cannot buy me off. It's the Wellingtons, she pleaded. They threaten lawsuits. They have powerful friends. We are just a family business, ma'am. We cannot fight them. I can, I said. It was a lie. I felt sick. I had no lawyer. I had no power. But I needed to say it. Just then, the phone rang again. It was a private line. The receptionist looked at the screen. She frowned. It's the owner's personal number, she said. She picked it up. Rosewood Hall. Yes, ma'am. She listened for a moment. Then her eyes went wide. She looked from the phone to me. Her face was pale. She covered the receiver with her hand. She leaned in close to me. She wants to talk to you, Miss Morgan. Right now, the owner. The person who had decided that my love and my money meant less than Chloe's party. My heart began to pound again. This was the moment of complete, total defeat. I took a deep breath. I reached for the phone. I was ready for the argument. I was ready to lose. I was not ready for the call that would change everything. I took the phone from the receptionist. Her hand was cold. Mine was shaking slightly. I held the phone tight against my ear. It felt heavy. Hello, I said. My voice was tight. I sounded like I was fighting a cold. I tried to sound formal. I tried to sound like I had power. A woman's voice came through. It was not the nervous voice of the receptionist. This voice was calm. It was strong. It was low. It had authority. "This is Violet Morgan," I said again, louder. "You've canceled my venue without notice. I have a valid, paid-in-full contract." The woman on the other end did not apologize. She did not argue about the contract. She did not even talk about the Wellingtons. Instead, she asked one simple question. "What's your fiancé's name?" The question stopped me. It was strange. It had nothing to do with the contract law. Nothing to do with the money. "Why?" I asked. I did not mean to sound rude. "I was just confused." "Just answer the question, Miss Morgan," she said. Her voice was steady. It was a voice that expected to be obeyed. "His name is Ethan Carter," I said. There was a long silence on the line. Too long. It was the kind of silence that made you check if the call had dropped. The silence stretched. The only sound was the faint crackle on the phone line. My stomach twisted. Did the Wellingtons know Ethan? Had they gone after him too? Was this some new layer of humiliation? Then the woman spoke again. Her voice was different. It was softer now. It had a new tone. It was one I could not place. "Miss Morgan," she said, "please wait in the lobby. Do not move. Do not leave the building. I'll be there in 10 minutes. I am on my way now." The line clicked dead. I put the phone down slowly. The receptionist was staring at me. Her mouth was slightly open. "What did she say?" the receptionist whispered. "She said she's coming here," I replied. "In 10 minutes." The receptionist looked terrified. She started to straighten the papers on her desk. She fussed with the sugar packets on the coffee bar. I sat back down. My heart was pounding hard. It felt like a drum hitting the inside of my chest. My legs were numb. Why did she ask about Ethan? It made no sense. Did she know him? Maybe he had helped someone she knew. Maybe she was a friend of a friend. But why would that make her drive all the way here? Why would it change anything about my contract? I looked at the clock on the wall. The second hand seemed to be crawling. 7 minutes. I thought about Ethan again. I pictured his face. He was coming off a night shift. He would be tired. But he would still call me. He would still ask about my day. He would never let me feel alone. That was the real contract. The one that mattered. My family had always used things as weapons. Money, reputation. The silent, cold approval of others. They used them to control me. They used them to make me feel worthless. When my mother gave me the goodbye gift money, I felt like a business had closed down. The business of being their daughter. I remembered my father's annual birthday gifts. They were always expensive. A designer watch. A first-class ticket somewhere. But they were never personal. They were never what I wanted. They were always a reminder of what they expected me to be. A reflection of their success. Not my own. The year I turned 21, I asked for a simple camera. I wanted to take pictures of the city. He bought me a new sports car instead. It was red. It was loud. "This," he said, tapping the steering wheel, "is how a Morgan travels. Not on a bus, taking pictures of beggars." I drove that car maybe 5 times. I felt sick every time. I sold it when I moved out. I used the money to pay for my art supplies. I realized I was rubbing the engagement ring on my finger. Ethan's ring. It was simple gold. It had a small, clear diamond. It was exactly what I wanted. It felt like mine. 2 minutes. I stood up. I wanted to look composed. I did not want to look like the poor, desperate girl who had lost her wedding venue. I pulled my jacket straight. I smoothed my hair. I took a deep breath. The glass doors of Rosewood Hall opened wide. They made a soft, professional whoosh sound. The woman who walked in was exactly as her voice sounded. Calm, strong. She was in her 50s. She wore a simple tailored suit. Her hair was silver and perfectly cut. She carried herself with quiet power. Not the loud, demanding power of the Wellingtons. This was different. This was authority earned. As she entered the lobby, everyone in the room suddenly stood straighter. The nervous receptionist, a janitor pushing a cart, even a couple viewing the banquet hall. They all stopped what they were doing. They acknowledged her presence without a word. She did not look at the receptionist. She walked straight across the marble floor. Her eyes were fixed on me. They were kind, but they were assessing. She stopped right in front of my chair. "Miss Morgan," she said. Her voice was gentle this time. "I'm Margaret Delaney, the owner of Rosewood Hall, and I'm afraid my staff made a mistake, one that ends today." I opened my mouth to thank her, to tell her I was relieved, to ask what had changed. Before I could get a single word out, the glass doors burst open again. This time there was no gentle whoosh. They seemed to fly open with violence. My Aunt Vivian Wellington swept in like a storm. She did not just walk into a room, she attacked it. She was wearing an expensive, bright pink coat. It was loud. Just like her, Chloe Wellington, my cousin, trailed behind her. Chloe was trying to look bored and superior. She was dripping designer perfume. She carried a massive handbag. The entitlement was a visible cloud around them both. I felt all the blood rush from my face. This was it. The confrontation. The real fight. And I was standing right in the middle of it. I felt the familiar burn of panic and shame. I was back in the high school cafeteria. Chloe was laughing at my cheap lunch. Aunt Vivian saw Margaret. She smiled a wide, fake smile. It did not reach her eyes. "Margaret," Aunt Vivian exclaimed. Her voice was too loud for the lobby. It was designed to carry. "Perfect timing. I told your assistant we'll pay double for the Morgan girls' slot. 3 times if we must. The Wellingtons don't take no for an answer, darling. You know that." She paused for a breath. She looked at me. Her eyes narrowed. Her smile disappeared. It was replaced by a cold glare. She looked at me like I was dirt on her shoe. I took a step back. I felt smaller than I was. I waited for Margaret to cave. I waited for her to apologize to Vivian. I waited for the money to win. It always did. Margaret did not move. She did not flinch. She just folded her arms across her chest. She looked at Aunt Vivian. Her expression did not change. "I'm aware," Margaret said evenly. Her voice was steady and quiet. It forced Aunt Vivian to lean in slightly to hear her. It stole Aunt Vivian's power. Then Margaret said the most shocking thing I had ever heard. "Which is why I didn't call you." Aunt Vivian's perfect smile wavered. The air in the lobby was thick. Margaret turned away from the Wellingtons. She turned fully toward me. She looked me in the eye. I called my daughter. A moment passed. A very long moment. Aunt Vivian's face was frozen in confusion. Chloe was looking down at her phone, then back up, trying to figure out the social angle. I was just stunned. Margaret, the owner, stood tall. She did not look away from me. It was like a spotlight had been turned on, and I was the only person she could see. "My daughter is arriving now," Margaret stated. It was a fact, not a threat, just a statement of truth. The glass doors opened again. A young woman entered. She was in her early 30s. She was wearing professional clothes, a sharp blazer and dark pants. She had a clipboard in her hand. She was confident, poised. She was also beautiful in a grounded way. She was not fragile. She was strong. She walked up to Margaret. She spoke softly. "Mom?" she said. Margaret placed a hand gently on the young woman's shoulder. She looked from her daughter to me. "Violet," Margaret said. "This is my daughter, Savannah." The name hit me. It hit me hard. It was like the name had its own electric charge. Savannah. The name felt familiar. It was a name I had heard 100 times. A name that meant protection and strength. I stared at the woman. Then I looked back at Margaret. Then back at the woman. My mouth was dry. Savannah Carter. The glass walls around my old life and my new life were shattering. They were falling to the floor. Savannah Carter. Ethan's sister. My fiancé had always spoken about her with such respect. He rarely spoke about his family. He only had one sister. Savannah. I remembered the stories. Savannah worked 3 jobs to help me pay for my EMT training, Vi. She told me to keep my head up. She's the smartest person I know. She told me to study harder. She believed in me when I thought I was going to fail. The one who'd helped him through the toughest years. The one who'd believed in him when my family believed only in money. Savannah was looking at me now. Her eyes were warm. They were kind. They were also sharp. She smiled faintly. It was a genuine smile. "It was not a social performance. You must be Violet," she said. Her voice was soft. It was a different kind of strength than her mother's. It was the strength of conviction. "Ethan's fiancé." I felt dizzy. The room was spinning slightly. This was too much. The universe had just played a massive joke on me. I nodded quickly. I tried to speak. The words caught in my throat. "He never told me you owned this place," I stammered. It was the only thing I could think to say. Savannah's smile widened a tiny bit. "He doesn't brag," she said gently. "It runs in the family." This exchange, this simple 2-line conversation, was too much for Aunt Vivian. The quiet power in the room was suffocating her. Her face was becoming red. Aunt Vivian let out a high, sharp laugh. It was fake. It was designed to break the silence. It was a desperate sound. "Oh, this is adorable," she drawled. Her voice was dripping with venom and sarcasm. Nepotism and charity rolled into one. Violet finds the only other poor family in the state, and now she thinks she has a leg up. She looked at Margaret. Her voice changed to a commanding tone. "Margaret, be reasonable. My daughter's engagement will attract the governor, the Hadleys, the mayor's wife. You'll get huge press. You'll be booked solid for a year. That's business. This Morgan girl's wedding? It'll be a handful of paramedics and art teachers. It's bad for your brand. It's bad for your business." Aunt Vivian was counting on Margaret's greed. She was counting on the fact that every business owner would choose money and influence over a signed contract. She did not count on Savannah. Savannah took a step forward. She stood beside her mother. She spoke clearly. Her voice was quiet. It was steady. It was dangerous. "And the tabloids," Savannah interrupted. She did not shout. She did not even look at Aunt Vivian. She looked at the main counter of the lobby. Aunt Vivian stopped talking. She was stunned into silence again. Savannah turned to face my aunt directly. She did not have a friendly look on her face anymore. She had a business look. A look that said, "I know exactly who you are. We've hosted enough of your kind, Mrs. Wellington. Enough of the Hadleys and the mayor's wife. My mother built this hall for real celebrations, not PR cover-ups for failed marriages and bad investments." The room went quiet. The sound of the fountain stopped being loud. It felt like the air conditioning had even turned off. This was the moment of complete stillness before an explosion. Aunt Vivian's face was twisted. She was sputtering. She was trying to form words. She was not used to being challenged. She was not used to being insulted so publicly. She was especially not used to being insulted by someone who looked younger than her but carried more real power. "You can't speak to me that way," Aunt Vivian finally managed to snap out. Her voice was trembling with rage. Savannah smiled a small, cold smile. She leaned slightly toward my aunt. "Actually," Savannah said calmly, "I can, because this is my venue. My mother and I own it. We run it. We decide who comes in and who doesn't. You are a customer, Mrs. Wellington. Nothing more. You have no stock here. You have no influence here," she paused for emphasis. She let her words sink in. Then she delivered the final blow to my cousin's request. She looked at my contract lying on the desk. She did not even need to touch it. And the Morgan wedding stays. I felt a surge of energy shoot through me. It was not anger. It was not even relief. It was a feeling of justice. A feeling I had never felt before in my life. It was a feeling of being defended, of having an army. And my army was standing right beside me. My cousin Chloe stepped forward then. She was angry. Her face was flushed. She spoke in a loud, high voice that dripped with spoiled malice. "You're ruining everything! Do you even know who my father is?" Chloe was relying on her father's reputation, a man known for his aggressive business tactics and his aggressive social spending. Savannah did not even look at her. She just raised one eyebrow at my aunt. "Yes," Savannah said to Aunt Vivian. "I know exactly who Mr. Wellington is. And he's a man who owes this venue 6 months of unpaid event fees from last year." The atmosphere in the lobby changed completely. It was no longer a social argument. It was a business demolition. Aunt Vivian's face drained of color. The loud, vibrant pink of her jacket seemed to clash horribly with the sudden grayness of her skin. She looked utterly defeated. She looked like she had been hit by a truck. She took a shaky step toward Savannah. She lowered her voice, but it was still urgent and desperate. "That's confidential, Margaret. You can't discuss a client's financials," she snapped. She was trying to regain control. She was trying to use the language of the elite. "Not when you threaten my staff," Savannah replied. She did not look at her mother. She kept her eyes locked on Aunt Vivian. "You came in here trying to bully a young woman into tearing up a valid contract. You brought your entitlement and your money and your threats. You wanted to use your reputation. Fine. We will use the truth of your reputation." Savannah walked over to the desk. She picked up a small black notebook that had been sitting near the receptionist's computer. She flipped it open. She scanned a page. "Your last outstanding balance is $62,000, Mrs. Wellington, for the Save the Manatees gala that ended in 3 police calls and a missing centerpiece. You promised to pay us when your daughter's engagement party was booked." Aunt Vivian was shaking her head slowly. It was a frantic movement of denial. No, that's a mistake. We paid half. We had an arrangement. The arrangement was full payment before any new booking was confirmed. Savannah corrected her. She spoke like a lawyer reading a statute. You jumped the line, Mrs. Wellington. You called us, promised triple the fee, and assumed we would take the money and throw Miss Morgan out. You assumed we were as desperate and low-class as you are. I watched the whole scene. I did not move. I did not breathe. I was just a silent witness to my family's actual character being exposed. They were not powerful. They were just bullies. And they were bad at paying their bills. They were bad at business. They were bad people. Savannah closed the notebook with a quiet click. It was final. The sound was louder than any shout. Then she turned. She turned completely away from the Wellingtons. She looked at me. Her expression softened immediately. The hardness in her eyes was replaced by a look of focused, steady concern. "Violet," she said. Her voice was kind. It was warm. "Your wedding will proceed as planned. You have the contract. You have the venue. You have our apology." She looked down at the contract on the desk. She pointed to a line item. "I'll personally oversee the arrangements. I want to make sure everything is perfect. And as compensation for the distress and the attempted bullying you had to endure in my hall, we'll upgrade your entire package. Free of charge. Platinum suite. Full staffing. Anything you want." I tried to speak. I tried to say thank you. The emotion that had been building up in my chest for the last hour, and for the last 3 years, suddenly swelled up. It was gratitude. It was shock. It was relief. It was the crushing weight of being truly helped, truly defended. My throat clogged. I could not form a single coherent word. Tears pricked at my eyes. I pushed them back. I did not want to cry in front of Aunt Vivian. I did not want to give her that satisfaction. I finally managed a whisper. "It was barely a sound. Why are you doing this?" I whispered. "You don't even know me." Savannah's answer was simple. It was the simplest answer in the world. It was the answer that cut through all the money and all the class and all the drama. "Because my brother loves you, Violet. And he is a good man. The best man I know. Anyone who hurts him deals with me." She said it with absolute conviction. It was a promise. It was a shield. Aunt Vivian let out a choked sound. A sound of total defeat. Chloe finally broke. Chloe stepped forward away from her mother. She looked small now. The designer perfume did not smell as strong. She did not look like the superior cousin. She looked like a girl who was finally seeing the consequences of her actions. "Mom, stop," Chloe said. Her voice was weak. "Just stop. We can't do this. This is awful. Maybe we don't deserve this one." She was crying now. Real tears. Not the performative tears of a spoiled child. She was embarrassed. She was defeated. She was seeing her own family's ugly underbelly in public. For a second, Aunt Vivian looked away from Savannah. She looked at her own daughter. Then she looked at me. She looked human. For a split second, her mask slipped. There was a deep, terrible sadness in her eyes. It was the sadness of someone who had won the game but lost their soul. She had all the money. She had all the status. She was still standing in a public lobby, exposed and owing debt, watching her plan fail. She turned to me one last time. Her voice was low. It was filled with bitterness. "You think love pays bills, Violet? Let's see how long that lasts. You think an ambulance driver can save you from real life? You're naive." "You always were," I smiled softly. It was a real smile. It did not have any bitterness. It was quiet. It was steady. It was the smile of someone who was finally free. "Maybe not," I agreed. I kept my voice calm. "Maybe love doesn't pay bills, but it keeps you from choking on your own bitterness, Vivian. And that is a price you can't pay." I called her Vivian, not Aunt Vivian, just Vivian. It was another small break, another quiet victory. I did not owe her the respect of a title. She did not say another word. She grabbed Chloe's arm. The expensive pink coat was suddenly a symbol of her failure. She marched out of Rosewood Hall. The glass doors closed behind them. There was silence. The battle was over. Savannah watched them go. Then she turned back to me. She was smiling a full, genuine smile now. It reached her eyes. "That was good, Violet," she said. "Very good." I felt the tension leave my body all at once. My knees felt weak. I just stood there. The receptionist was staring at me like I was a superhero. I was not a superhero. I was just a girl who had been defended. Margaret walked over and put her arm around my shoulder. It was a comforting weight. It was the feeling of a mother's hug, a feeling I had not truly had in years. "We are so very sorry, my dear," Margaret said. "We will make this right." I finally let myself cry. Not loud sobs, just quiet, steady tears. I just stood there, allowing myself to be held. I had spent 3 years being strong. Now I could finally just be safe. I was not powerless at all. My power was the quiet, good love I had chosen. And that love had an older sister who ran a very successful business. Savannah walked back to the desk. She took a deep breath. She had a new energy. The battle was over. The work was starting. "Let's get you that upgrade, Violet," she said. "And let's make this the best wedding this hall has ever seen." She had won the fight for me, but I had won the bigger prize. I had found my real family, the one I had chosen, the one who chose me back. The room was still silent after Aunt Vivian and Chloe left. I could still hear the fading sound of Vivian's expensive heels clicking rapidly across the parking lot outside. Margaret Delaney, the owner, was still holding my shoulder. It felt solid. It felt real. Savannah, my soon-to-be sister-in-law, put the black notebook back on the desk. She looked at the young receptionist who was standing there with tears in her own eyes. "Are you okay, Clara?" Savannah asked the girl. Clara, the receptionist, nodded quickly. "Yes, Ms. Carter, thank you." They were just so loud. "They won't be loud here again," Savannah promised. "Not ever." Margaret squeezed my shoulder one last time. "Clara, please call the florist and the baker. Tell them we have a new platinum wedding package starting today. It's for Miss Morgan. Get them on the line immediately. We need to start planning the upgrades." Clara moved fast. She was energized. She was ready to work. It was clear that Savannah and Margaret didn't just own the place. They ran it with kindness and fairness. Margaret looked at me. Her expression was gentle. "Violet, let's go into my private office. You need some quiet and a cup of proper coffee. Savannah and I need to talk logistics." We walked down a long, quiet hallway. The office was not overly decorated. It was warm. It had books and art on the walls. It felt like a home, not a boardroom. I sat on a soft leather couch. The whole situation felt surreal. 10 minutes ago, I was facing total humiliation. I was losing the one thing that symbolized my independence and happiness. Now I was being given an upgrade by my fiancé's sister. The family who had cut me off had fallen flat on their faces. Margaret brought me coffee. It was strong and hot. I gripped the mug. My hands were finally steady. "I'm sorry you had to deal with that, Violet," Margaret said, sitting across from me. "I'm used to it," I said simply. I did not mean to sound dramatic. It was just the truth. They always won. They always got what they wanted. I was always the one who was easy to sacrifice. Savannah pulled a chair close. She leaned forward. Her business look was gone. She looked concerned, like a friend. "Tell me about Ethan's family," I said, looking at Savannah. "He never talks about his family's money. He only talks about you. And the hard times," Savannah nodded. "We had hard times, very hard. My father left when we were kids. Mom built this place brick by brick. She started small. She catered parties. Then she saved enough to buy this land. She worked 18-hour days." Margaret smiled a little. "She's exaggerating." "It was only 16-hour days," they laughed. It was a light, honest sound. Savannah continued. "Ethan was always the sensitive one. He saw Mom struggling. He saw me struggling. He knew he had to help. He became a paramedic because he likes helping. He doesn't care about the salary. He cares about the work. He's a good man, Vi. He worries too much, especially about you." "He worries I'm still hurt by my family," I admitted. "Are you?" Savannah asked directly. I thought about it. I took a sip of coffee. Not hurt by them anymore. Just hurt for them. They have everything. The houses, the clothes, the reputation. But they're miserable. They're empty. And they're mean. I told them about the college money. The goodbye gift. I told them about the cold text from my mother. I kept the language direct. I did not need to use big words to explain the pain. She said I was choosing poverty, that I shouldn't expect their help. Margaret shook her head slowly. "That's not a mother, dear. That's a shareholder. She was investing in a certain kind of daughter. When you didn't give her the expected return, she cashed out." That was the truest, simplest explanation I had ever heard. Savannah picked up my contract. She looked at my neat signature. "We are not going to let them win, Violet. This wedding is going to be perfect. Not just because you deserve it, but because your choice deserves to be celebrated. Your choice of a good man. Your choice of a good life. She reached across the table and touched my hand. Ethan is my family. You are marrying him. That means you are my family too. And in this family, we protect each other. We pay our debts. We don't owe money to anyone, and we don't let anyone bully us. The contrast with the Wellingtons was stark. My family had disowned me for choosing love. Ethan's family was defending me for choosing love. Savannah started going over the contract. She pulled out a fresh sheet of paper. We're upgrading your floral budget by $2,000, she announced. We're adding a 5-course meal instead of the 3 you chose. And we are adding the string quartet, free of charge. I felt overwhelmed again, but in a good way. Savannah, I can't accept all this. This is too much. It's not too much, Margaret interjected firmly. It's compensation for emotional distress. It's a thank you for choosing a good man. And it's a warning shot to people like Vivian. They need to know that good people have power too. Savannah looked at me, serious. Here's the turning point, Vi. You don't owe them anything. Not your time, not your anger, and certainly not your sadness. They want you to be miserable. Don't be. Be happy. That is the ultimate revenge. She pulled out her laptop. She opened a spreadsheet. She was already working. Her focus was total. This was how the Carters worked. With diligence, honesty, and heart. I watched her for a long time. I was studying her. I was studying my future. It was not the life of expensive cars and cold marble. It was a life of hard work, loyalty, and deep connection. It was better. My parents had always valued legacy. The Morgan name. The high society connections. They thought those things were their protection. They were wrong. They were just paper-thin decorations. Savannah, Margaret, and Ethan valued integrity. They had built their own legacy from nothing. A legacy of respect. That was the real power. It was the power that brought Vivian Wellington to her knees. It was the power that was now protecting me. I finished my coffee. It tasted like a fresh start. Okay, I said, standing up. I felt taller. What can I do to help? I'm an art therapist. I'm organized. I can help with the design elements. Savannah smiled a huge, genuine smile. That's the spirit, Vi. Let's look at the color palettes. The discussion started. It was professional, fun, and warm. For the next hour, we talked about lighting, flowers, and music. I was not a victim anymore. I was a partner. I was part of the family planning. When I finally walked out of Rosewood Hall, the sun felt warmer. The perfect green lawn felt like a promise. The contract in my hand felt less like a piece of paper and more like a key. I was not just getting married. I was starting my life, and I had 2 fierce, wonderful women who were already standing up for me. I drove home. I couldn't wait to see Ethan. I couldn't wait to tell him I had met his sister. I didn't tell him everything immediately. I wanted to tell him in person. I just sent him a simple text. Me. Big news. Good news. The wedding is still on. And I love your sister, Ethan. My sister? You met Savannah today? Me. Yes, she's incredible. She saved me. I'll tell you everything when you get home. Be safe. His reply came back immediately. Ethan, I told you. My sister is the best. Can't wait. Love you. I felt a rush of warmth. I had chosen love. And love, it turned out, had its own powerful family. One that worked hard, paid its bills, and knew how to fight the right way. I looked at the world differently now. My old family tried to erase me. My new family was writing me into their story. This was the turning point. I was done being quiet. I was done being sacrificed. I was ready to claim my new life. The very next week, the consequences of the Rosewood Hall incident exploded. The Wellingtons were masters of public image. Losing the venue was a huge blow to their reputation. It was a scandal. It was more than losing a party. It was losing face. My mother called me 3 days after the Rosewood meeting. She never called. She always texted. This was a crisis. I was grading art papers at my kitchen table. The phone rang. It was her number. I almost didn't answer. I took a deep breath. I picked up. Hello, Mother, I said. My voice was calm. She did not return the calm. Her voice was sharp, fast, and high-pitched. Violet! What did you do to Vivian? She is hysterical. She called your father. The whole engagement is a disaster. Chloe is crying constantly. She says her reputation is ruined. I put my pen down. I did not raise my voice. I spoke slowly. Mother, I didn't do anything to Aunt Vivian. I went to the venue to talk about my wedding. Vivian showed up and tried to illegally bribe the owner to cancel my contract. The owner found out about the money Vivian already owes them. It was a business matter. I was just there. Don't be ridiculous, Violet. This is all your fault. You caused a scene. You should have just taken the refund. You should have just walked away quietly. That's what a lady does. You never understood discretion. The phrase hit me. You should have just walked away quietly. That was the story of my life with them. Walk away. Don't cause trouble. Don't talk about the pain. Don't talk about the neglect. Just disappear and let them have their perfect world. No, Mother, I said, and the word felt solid in my mouth. I paid for a service. I had a contract. When people try to bully me, I don't walk away quietly anymore. I learned that lesson the hard way. The hard way? You're marrying a man who works 12 hours a day just to pay for a tiny apartment, Violet. Your father and I gave you a future of security. No, I corrected her. You gave me a future of cold control. Ethan gives me a future of warm safety. There is a difference. And I prefer the safety. There was a sputter on the line. It was my mother, totally caught off guard. I had never spoken to her this way. I had always been compliant. I had always tried to earn her love by being quiet and perfect. I was done trying. Don't you dare lecture me, young lady. Your father is furious. He said if you don't call Vivian and apologize, or at least offer to find Chloe a new, fancier venue, he's going to cut off the trust fund he set up for your birthday. I actually laughed. It was a hollow, dry sound. Mother, he already cut off the college fund. He already sent me the goodbye gift. I don't need the money. I don't need his control. You can tell Father to do whatever he wants with his money. It means nothing to me now. Tell him the check is blank. I heard my father's voice in the background. It was a low growl. Is that Violet? Give me the phone. My mother's voice was high and panicked. Violet, wait. Your father. Then my father was on the line. His voice was thick with manufactured authority. Violet, this ends now. You will call your Aunt Vivian. You will apologize for the scene. You will smooth this over. This mess reflects poorly on the Morgan name. And the Morgan name is all you have left. No, Father, I said. The Morgan name reflects poorly on me. I don't want it anymore. The Morgan name is a business asset. I am not an asset. I am a person. And that person is happy. That person is getting married. And that person is not apologizing to a woman who broke the law to try to ruin my life. I paused. I needed him to hear this clearly. You chose Vivian's business reputation over my happiness 3 years ago. You chose silence over defending me. That was your choice. This is mine. I am choosing the Carters. They are honest. They are loyal. They protect their own. And they don't treat me like a bank statement. His voice dropped to a terrifying whisper. The kind he used to use when I was a child and I had spilled juice on the expensive carpet. You will regret this, Violet. When your paramedic friend leaves you, when you are broke, you will crawl back here. And the door will be closed. My breath hitched. That was the deepest cut. The fear of being abandoned, cold and alone. The fear he had instilled in me since childhood. I took a deep breath. I looked at the art papers on the table. The children's simple, honest drawings. They were messy and colorful and full of life. Not cold and sterile like my parents' world. You're wrong, Father, I said. My voice was steady. It did not shake. Ethan will never leave me. Because he loves me for who I am, not for who you want me to be. And I will never crawl back, because I'm already free. Goodbye, Father. I hung up the phone. I did not wait for a response. I did not wait for the inevitable angry text. I just hung up. The silence in my small, sunlit kitchen was deafening. I sat there for a long time. My heart was pounding. I had done it. I had cut the final cord. I had stood up for myself. I had chosen love over legacy. I had chosen truth over silence. I didn't feel relief right away. I felt a massive emptiness. It was the feeling of losing the last connection to my past, even though that connection was poisonous. I felt the deep, cold ache of a lifetime of neglect. They were not just bad parents. They were cruel. And now I had finally admitted it out loud. I had finally walked away. I texted Ethan, I love you. Call me when you get off shift. His reply came back immediately. I love you more. Almost done. Save me some dinner. The simple words grounded me. They were a life raft. Later that week, the local social paper ran a small veiled story. It was an awkward, rushed announcement about Chloe's postponed engagement party and a note about the sudden management change at Rosewood Hall. It was vague, but to the people in our circle, the message was clear. The Wellingtons had lost. I had never wanted them to fail. I just wanted them to be decent. I just wanted them to love me. But watching them fall because of their own greed felt like a form of delayed justice. It was a loud public acknowledgement that their money did not equal morality. The whole world did not revolve around the Morgan and Wellington names. My personal family explosion was over. I had survived the shrapnel. I was ready for the quiet work of healing. I was ready for the wedding. I was ready for my real life. The days leading up to the wedding were a strange mix of deep happiness and quiet recovery. Savannah and Margaret were incredible. They handled everything with efficiency and grace. Savannah and I became close. We talked on the phone almost every day. It was easy. It was effortless. It was what a healthy relationship felt like. "You're a Morgan, Vi, but you're a Carter now," Savannah told me one afternoon. "We don't do drama. We do dinner," I smiled. I like dinner better. I was still expecting the other shoe to drop. My old life had taught me that victory was always temporary. That happiness was a trap, that the Wellingtons would find another way to hurt me. And they did try. One afternoon, a package arrived at my apartment. It was a huge, heavy box. Inside, there was a terrible dress. It was a loud, shiny pink. It looked like something from a bad 1980s movie. It was addressed from Aunt Vivian. There was a tiny card attached. It said in her perfect cursive, "Wear this. It's the only way you'll stand out at your little party." It was a final, cruel jab at my quiet taste, at the simplicity of my wedding plans, and at my financial status. It was her trying to define me one last time. I stared at the dress for a full 5 minutes. I felt the old wave of shame try to wash over me. The feeling that I was not enough, that I was too plain, too quiet. Then I looked at the wedding planning book Savannah had given me. It was filled with my own ideas. Pictures of white flowers, notes about soft lighting, drawings of the children from my therapy class, who I was teaching to embrace their own messy, beautiful art. I took the terrible pink dress, walked outside, and put it directly into the big dumpster behind my apartment building. I did not rip it. I did not burn it. I just disposed of it. I treated it like trash. That was all it was. That was the power. Not fighting back, but simply not caring. Not letting their words land. The actual collapse of the Wellingtons happened quickly. It wasn't about my wedding anymore. It was about their financial history. My father had been protecting Vivian's husband, Uncle David, for years. They were in business together. David was known for aggressive deals, but also for cutting corners and running up debts. The Rosewood Hall incident was the crack in the dam. Savannah and Margaret had been holding that debt over David's head, politely, waiting for him to pay. When Vivian attacked me, Savannah released the information. She didn't leak it to the press. She sent a quiet, professional email to 3 key people on the city's events board and 2 of David's creditors, simply stating the facts about the unpaid bill and the public bullying. It was enough. The following week, Uncle David's main investment deal fell apart. The local papers suddenly had a lot to say about the Wellington family's questionable financial dealings and overextended credit. The man Chloe was marrying, the banker, pulled out of the engagement. He called Chloe, not because he loved her, but because her family's debt was now his risk. My mother called again. This time she wasn't mad. She was terrified. "Violet, your father. He's losing everything. The pressure is too much. He's ill. He's going to lose the yacht. He's selling the summer house." Her voice was raw. "I'm sorry, Mother," I said. And I was. Truly sorry for their pain. But I was not responsible for it. You have to call Savannah. You have to ask her to stop. She listens to you now. Tell her you forgive Vivian. Tell her you need them to stop the damage. "Mother, I have no power over Savannah's business decisions," I said honestly. "She is collecting a debt that was owed to her. It's business." "It has nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with you. If you had just been quiet, if you had just married the man we wanted, none of this would be happening." It was the same loop, the same emotional blackmail, the same attempt to make me the source of all their unhappiness. I took a slow, deep breath. "Mother, my choices did not make David Wellington take on $62,000 of debt with Rosewood Hall. My choices did not make Father cover up his partner's bad deals. You are all responsible for your own lives, and I am responsible for mine. I choose peace. I choose happiness. I knew I was never going to get the apology I deserved. I was never going to get the validation. I was just going to get the blame. I cannot help you, Mother, I said. I wish you well. But I cannot help you. I hung up. It was the last time I ever spoke to my mother. The collapse of the Wellingtons was final. They lost the venue. They lost the money. They lost the status. It was a hard lesson. Learned publicly, I didn't celebrate it. I didn't cheer. I just felt a quiet emptiness. They had chosen money and status over everything. And in the end, those things had failed them. I had chosen love and honesty, and those things had given me a new family and a new defense. I turned my focus back to the wedding. I focused on the tangible good things, the smell of the rose samples, the perfect simple invitations we sent out, the sound of Ethan's laughter when I told him about the absurd pink dress. The world was finally quiet. The Morgan family was in pieces, but the Carter Morgan family was being built, strong and true. The victimization was over. The healing had begun. The wedding preparations became my therapy. Every decision I made was a quiet act of defiance against my past. Every choice was a step toward my future. I chose simple, classic white roses. My mother would have insisted on something dramatic and rare, flown in from another continent. I chose the white roses because they were peaceful. They smelled clean. I did not invite anyone from my old life. No extended family. No people who knew my parents. This was not a performance for their approval. This was a covenant between Ethan and me. I made the guest list small. Ethan's friends from the firehouse. My students' parents who had become my friends. Savannah, Margaret, and their immediate family. It was a gathering of people who had seen me, truly seen me, and loved me for it. Savannah was relentless in her care. She didn't just give me an upgrade. She gave me her time. She took me dress shopping. Not to the expensive boutiques my mother would have preferred. We went to a small local dressmaker. I found a dress that was simple lace. It was elegant. It felt like me. When I put it on, I looked at myself in the mirror. I did not see dollar store Barbie. I saw Violet Morgan. A happy woman. A woman who was loved. Savannah cried when I found it. Happy tears. Not social tears? You look beautiful, Vi, she said, wiping her eye. Ethan is going to lose his mind. It was the easiest, most joyful shopping trip of my life. There was no pressure, no judgment, just quiet, genuine happiness. The real healing, I realized, was happening not in a therapist's office, but in the small, everyday moments of kindness. It was in the way Margaret Delaney insisted on helping me choose the perfect cake flavor. It was in the way Ethan's cousin offered to build a beautiful wooden arch for the ceremony. I was learning what it meant to be part of a healthy family. A healthy family does not use love as leverage. My parents only gave me things to control me. They never asked what I needed. They only told me what they wanted. A healthy family defends you. Savannah did not hesitate. She saw me hurting and she acted. She didn't care about my family's money or status. She cared about her brother's happiness, and by extension, mine. A healthy family embraces your choices. Ethan never asked me to change. He only asked me to be happy. His family did the same. One evening, about a month before the wedding, Ethan and I were packing boxes for our move into a bigger apartment. We were sitting on the floor, surrounded by his old textbooks and my art supplies. I picked up a photo. It was a picture of a younger Savannah and Ethan. They were standing in front of a small, slightly run-down building. It was the first catering kitchen Margaret had owned. They looked tired, but they were both smiling fiercely. "Your family is amazing, Ethan," I said, holding the photo. He smiled. "They're tough. They had to be. But they're good." I told him about the last call with my father. I kept it simple. I told him my father blamed me for the Wellington collapse and had finished the relationship. I told him about the feeling of emptiness afterward. Ethan put down his box. He came and sat right next to me. He took my hand. "Vi, you were a victim for so long," he said, his voice low. "You were victimized by neglect, by silence, by being treated like a business asset. That stops now. You didn't cause their collapse. Their choices caused their collapse." He looked right into my eyes. His look was full of love, not pity. "You chose me. You chose this life. That's your strength, not your fault. Don't ever let them convince you your happiness is their tragedy. Your happiness is our victory." He held me for a long time. I felt the last lingering ache of that childhood fear, the fear of abandonment, start to fade away. I was not alone. I was with a man who understood. I was marrying into a family that understood. I realized I wasn't just healing from the Wellingtons and the Morgans. I was healing from the version of myself who believed I deserved their coldness. I was learning to love the simple, quiet, messy, artistic woman I was. The woman Ethan loved. The woman Savannah defended. The wedding day arrived. It was perfect. The weather was bright. The white roses were beautiful. Rosewood Hall, under the management of Margaret and Savannah, was stunning. It was elegant, but it felt warm. It felt like our home for the day. I stood in the platinum suite, putting on my simple lace dress. Margaret came in. She had tears in her eyes again. "You remind me of my younger self," she said, fixing a piece of my veil. "Before the world taught me to apologize for kindness." "Never apologize for your kindness, Violet. It is your strength." Then Savannah came in. She handed me a small wrapped box. "A little something for the new Mrs. Carter," she said. Inside was a simple silver bracelet. It was engraved with 3 simple words: "We protect our own." I looked up at her, tears in my eyes. "Thank you, Savannah," I whispered. "Welcome to the family, Violet," she replied. Her voice was firm. It was a promise. For the first time in years, I believed her completely. It was not just a phrase. It was their code. My new code. The healing was complete. I walked down the aisle. The string quartet played softly. I saw Ethan waiting. He was wearing his best uniform, clean and sharp. He was crying a little. He was not ashamed of his feelings. I did not look for my parents. They were not there. I felt no sorrow, only peace. The ceremony was quick. It was real. We exchanged vows we had written ourselves. They were simple promises about trust, loyalty, and saving each other every day. We were pronounced husband and wife. The cheering was loud. It was full of joy, not status, just joy. At the reception, the upgraded 5-course meal was delicious. We danced, we laughed. I felt lighter than I had ever felt in my life. I looked around the room. I saw Margaret smiling. I saw Savannah raising her glass to me. I saw Ethan's proud face. This was my legacy. This was my life. At the end of the night, when the music was winding down, Ethan and I stood by the big windows of Rosewood Hall. I felt the familiar sense of quiet power. Love had not only survived, it had prevailed. My old family had taught me that I had to be silent, compliant, and rich to be worthy. They were wrong. My new family taught me that I had to be honest, kind, and loyal to be worthy. They were right. I was no longer the victim. I was the champion of my own life. I had chosen love, and love had given me everything my parents' money never could: safety, respect, and a family that truly valued me. Ethan took my hand. "Ready to go home, Mrs. Carter?" I looked at him, I smiled. "I'm ready." We walked out of Rosewood Hall together. I left the past behind me. I took the future with me.